well, whoever may be listening, thank you so much for joining us for the first ever Unprofessional podcast. Formerly known as Men of Leisure. We had a 2-podcast run, but we're back. It's Friday, December 18th. Josh and I have recently, probably less than 12 hours now, seen Star Wars. And so we're just going to get a little instant reaction from it the next day. So, Josh.
Yes, Nathan.
To start out, I mean, tell us the things you liked most about it. Just like get that out there. Let's start on a positive. This is what you liked about it.
All right. Well, to start off on a first note, I'd just like to say thank you for. I'm glad we could do this. The Men of Leisure thing worked out, and us and our wives really enjoyed listening to those podcasts.
The 15 listens we got between the two of us was great.
More so just us, but. Yeah. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. And I know
Star Wars, not our podcast.
Yes. The podcast, not so much, but Star Wars, yeah. And I know later we'll get into why, you have a little bit of a critique of it, but overall, I think we both agreed it was like a really enjoyable movie to see. But as far as an experience, I hadn't looked forward to a movie for this long. And I don't think in my entire life. I think the movies that I looked forward to were like The Dark Knight Rises, but that was like, maybe a month of anticipation. I've been anticipating this for I guess they announced it probably, a year or more ago. And it's been ever since that day. I've been excited, and then I, bought the tickets. So I had really high expectations.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where I wasn't sure even if the movie sucked, if I would even know. Mm-hmm. But it was really enjoyable. And Katie even liked it, which I thought was incredible.
That's huge.
And it was entertaining from start to finish, which I expect from Star Wars movies, but sometimes there's a dry spell, right? Like in episode 4, the first 20 minutes it's funny because it's R2-D2 and C-3PO, but it's kind of dry.
Definitely.
But this movie from the beginning, just because it's been, 10 years since we've had a Star Wars movie pretty much, but it was just exciting from start to finish. The old characters were kind of cool, even though it felt like their impact was big because obviously it was, Han, Luke, and Leia, seeing them in their individual pieces or whatever. It was big, but I felt like their part of the movie was so much smaller than the new characters that it made it a really complete movie. And I was more interested. I wanted to see more of Rey and Finn than I wanted to see more of Luke, Leia, and Han, because they were just so interesting to me and they were new. And it was like seeing me in a Star Wars universe kind of thing, because like the way he was reacting to stuff, it was different than the way we saw Luke react to stuff in like A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back when he was shooting stuff, because his reactions were that of someone who was in the 70s. And it was kind of cool seeing someone like freak out. It's like, that's kind of how me and you would freak out if we were on the Millennium Falcon and we were shooting at TIE fighters flying out of Jakku.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, it was really good, and we'll get more into J.J. Abrams and stuff like that later on, but what did you think?
I loved it. It was really good. My expectations and my excitement level was so high. And we've talked about it a little bit. I loved it, and I thought it was fantastic. And so I want to be positive about that because I thought it was so good. It was everything that I wanted it to be. I thought it perfectly paid homage to the old films and used some of the jokes from the old films. Like the way, it was just cool to see the chemistry between like Han Solo and Chewie, and like the way they used the droids the same way. It was just like all the humor was still there, and it was like it had never taken a 30-year break. Mm-hmm. So I think that was really cool. I loved that they did that, and the new characters were fantastic, like just super enjoyable. And
forgot to mention Poe or Pow. I don't really know.
Yeah.
Was it Poe?
Poe. Yeah,
Oscar Isaac.
He's one of my favorite actors anyway. So just seeing him on the screen makes me happy. But he was so good. He kind of like, you can tell they're kind of using him as like a new Han Solo kind of role, kind of like the cool like BA guy who just like has funny stuff to say. But yeah, it was just cool, man. It was a good story. I think it sets it up so well for like a new franchise and a new saga of movies. So yeah, I loved it. As far as like things I didn't like, there wasn't a lot, but I think my expectation was I was going to go in because of the new characters and see like a new direction, like almost a departure from the old films, and
like a new story type.
Yeah, not even that we would get away from like all of the characters can still be in it, but like maybe choose, instead of everyone being, because Darth Vader, he was related to Luke. He had this old relationship where he was
by the
good.
way, there will be plenty of spoilers in this. So if you haven't seen the movie and don't want spoilers, turn it off.
Yeah, definitely. This is the point of no return. If you get past this, like, we're definitely going to spoil things. But it's just you have like the old storyline of Anakin was a good guy. He was the savior of the Jedi, regime, and then he turned evil and ended up being the destruction.
The chosen one.
Yeah, exactly. He was the chosen one, and then he destroyed it. And now you have this guy who, like, Luke was, and this is a spoiler here. Luke was training.
We think
we're
almost 100% sure.
Yeah, it's pretty clear, at least what Leia mentions it. And the guy who now is Kylo Ren was being trained by Luke to be kind of the beginning of the new Jedi Order.
He was part of the 10 or so Jedi or however many he was training, and then he turned bad.
Yeah, and then so that's why Luke goes into hiding, because he felt like it was his fault. And so it's like that's kind of a similar storyline as to what Vader was doing, which is why I guess he relates to Vader so well. And then we see him at the end.
And why he feels in Vader's shadow, which was kind of cool when Rey picked that out of him.
That's true. That is cool. And so I mean, I guess that's probably the interesting part of it, is that you see, and maybe it almost is like the movie is kind of looking at what it's doing in itself in a weird way. I don't want to get like too fake meta. I can't even do that. Like, but it's like the movie is almost looking at what it's doing in itself through his character and being like, you can't get out of your own shadow. We're creating a character that can't get out of the shadow of Darth Vader, just like the Star Wars franchise can't get out of Darth Vader's shadow.
That's really true, because he's probably the most, between him and the Joker, he's the most iconic villain of all time.
Absolutely.
So it's like, why ignore him?
Yes,
kind of thing. Yeah.
You can't get out from it because he affects everything. Every character is connected to him. And so he that's kind of a cool part of it, but I almost, you kind of almost want to see something. And even at the end, they leave him the similar way we see Anakin left in the end of episode 3, where he's laying there on that embankment, in lava, which this guy's, left there for dead almost.
Now, okay, did he get his arm chopped off? Because I've only seen it once, so I can't really remember like the damage that happened to him. He got sliced down his. No, that was Finn.
Oh yeah, Finn got
I can't remember. He had some kind of damage, but I don't know if he's going to have the complete restructure that Darth had, but I get what you're saying. He was left for dead, kind of thing.
His face is torn up. He looks
like
he was
things
pretty
like, why didn't you kill him? But it was like, the same kind of thing. So I understand that.
Yeah, so it was kind of like left. That he's coming back worse than ever. Like, and he's gonna, and it's in the same way that the Emperor went to Anakin to kind of complete his training and fully turn him into Darth Vader. In the same way, this new character who's the Grand Chancellor, is that what they called him? What is it?
They called him the, I have it written down right here, the Supreme Leader Snoke.
Yes, Snoke. So Snoke was kind of the Emperor figure in this one, and he kind of
said, like, bring Kylo Ren to me so I can finish it. Yeah, I
So
gotcha.
it feels like a Darth Vader, like, same kind of storyline with him, same story type. And so it's like that. There's, the character Rey is kind of the Luke or the Anakin, but she doesn't have, like, an Obi-Wan Kenobi figure. So it is, like, it's just similar characters and stuff, and it would kind of been the one critique, which I don't even see it's like a critique because I love the movies as they are. It just is one thing where it's like I think I was expecting them to go a different direction, but it's the same storyline, which I like. I just think I was expecting this, so it's like I just have to change my expectations.
Down the rabbit hole. We talked about it earlier.
Yeah,
Phil Sims. We talked about it, but we. That's like meta. We're going meta joke of another podcast.
Oh my gosh.
But we went down the rabbit hole of you were saying that, and you weren't critiquing it, but it was like offending me so much.
I know, it was funny,
and I was getting so butthurt about it. But I guess we'll move on and talk about how do you think J.J. Abrams did as far as. In a lot of interviews, he discussed how much of a Star Wars fan he was, right? Like, it was kind of like you and I growing up and being a director and taking over the movie. Like, he didn't want to do it because it's such a big deal. And then someone told him, like, you'd regret this for the rest of your life if you didn't. So he did it. How do you think he handled balancing the nostalgia and the new characters?
I think it was phenomenal because it was like, again, we talked about it earlier, but we talked about it some about how there's like the small jokes. There were the big things, like, obviously the Millennium Falcon, like having the same characters from the old movies. Like, you're obviously paying homage automatically by having those characters. But then the small things, like the banter that they had, like the scene that sticks out to me that was like the perfect Star Wars moment was they're on the Star Killer.
Death Star?
They had some
Star
name
Destroyer.
for it. It was like they had like a new name for it that was weird. It was like Star Killer 2 or something. I don't know. It was something weird. It was, I don't know. Do you remember?
No, I don't.
I don't know.
No idea what you're talking about.
It was a cheesy name for it. But they get on the planet and Han is like, so what did you do when you used to work here? He says that to Finn, and Finn's like, oh, I was waste man. What did you say? Waste management or sanitation?
Sanitation. Yeah.
He goes, you were sanitation. He's freaking out on him. He's like, how do you know this is gonna work? And he's like, I just wanted to get here to save Rey. Anyways, and so they're talking about that, and then Chewie just makes makes a noise and Han Solo goes, "You're cold," and then they walk off. I was like, that's so perfect. In the middle of chaos, they like just joke back and forth. And so
I think like a lot of the things they had too, there was like the moment where C-3PO pops out, and then when they're on the Falcon, that virtual game pops up for a second when he exits. They have those movies to throw. I mean, and of course, like at least in my theater, that got cheers from like everyone. You know, it was just the little like whoa, and so I think that's what you're talking about. It's not like they stayed on those for too much, but they sprinkled those in there every once in a while at least.
And that was I think that was the stuff that made the biggest difference. Was like having the characters was really cool, and but like having the small things is what really made it feel like Star Wars. You know. Yeah. So, anyways,
the one thing that I was a little bit unsure of going into it was kind of J.J. Abrams' directing style versus how Star Wars usually ends stuff. Our friend Nolan he kind of predicted that the thing with Luke would happen at the end, to where we don't see Luke for the entire movie, but they're like looking for him, and then we see him desolate, and it's a cliffhanger and it cuts off. Now, I didn't think that would happen because I thought they were going to kind of say goodbye to Luke, Han, and Leia, whether they killed him off or did whatever in this movie, because I figured, hey, they're all kind of old. You kept reading interviews about them complaining about having to lose weight, and like Harrison Ford said he did it to get paid. And I was like, okay, they're joking, but it's kind of like this passive aggressive, like, we came back for the heck of it because J.J. Abrams was paid us money and was nice or whatever. So I thought they were going to say goodbye to him. So when we didn't see Luke, like, for the first hour, it's like, okay, are they going to introduce him and say goodbye to him like really fast? Because that would suck. And now it's like they left us on this, Dark Knight Rises type of cliffhanger to where J.J. Abrams just like introduces Luke Skywalker with this awesome beard and hair in the middle of this desolate planet. I think it was on the Outer Rim. And just leaves us with that. And then spins out, does like the classic Star Wars spin out and, fades to credits or whatever. And that just doesn't happen in Star Wars.
That's true, yeah.
The closest thing we get to that is like the when Han Solo gets frozen in carbonate at the end of Episode 5. And that was somewhat of a cliffhanger, even though like our main, Darth and Luke was kind of resolved for that episode. We found out, Luke, I'm your father, and he got his, his hand cut off. So that was kind of a cliffhanger, but this was just like dropping us off a cliff. Like the entire movie was, as far as the storyline, they were trying to find Luke, right? From the beginning with BB-8. So that was the arc of the movie. And we get satisfied at the very end with the final 30 seconds, but he doesn't even speak and it goes away.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it was bad because I enjoyed it. It was just different to see that in a Star Wars movie because
that's true.
Even though we probably kind of knew that was coming because it was a J.J. Abrams directed film.
Well, I would say I think we didn't touch on with all that the shift from, because we mentioned like, okay, he did. Your original question was how did he handle nostalgia and new characters? I think that the way they blended so well all kind of was culminated in that moment, because the whole journey was with these new characters. Like it happened, the old characters kind of brought them into this new world and this new battle. And they're like that last scene, there's so much weight to it because Luke knows everything that would have, because he was in control of R2-D2 being shut down. He knew R2-D2 had the map, and he knew there was a time when they were gonna have to find him. And so like he lets it happen, and he knows that's like all of the weight of what comes to that moment. And then you see like this new hero arising in Rey, presenting like this lightsaber that's passed down through all 6 episodes, and then it culminates in like that moment where they're just sitting there looking at each other and they both know how important it is. So it's just cool to see like I think that moment, that scene was powerful because of how it does show. This is the new character that is relying on the old, and it's just like they kind of need each other for this moment. Anyways, it's too cheesy to like keep talking about it, but the cliffhanger was cool and it was interesting. I was worried they were just going to leave it with her going off to try to find Luke and leaving it there.
Yeah, at least we got to see his face.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, I had mentioned this earlier, like that's the easiest acting job ever. Like, hey, come stand on this mountainside in Iceland for 15 minutes and look like Jesus. And that's all you get. You get $1 million for that. So.
Okay, I guess now we're going to move on and talk about Han Solo and Leia, because they were out of the 3, Han Solo, Leia, and Luke, and I guess even Chewbacca to a certain extent. But I want to talk a little bit about Han Solo. And of course, we've already mentioned spoilers, but the Kylo Ren son kind of thing. How did you feel about that? Because I know when it first popped up on screen, I was kind of like, really, they're going to make him his son? It was kind of like one of those things like classic Star Wars, but then I had to remember, classic Star Wars. That's what they do. You got to interweave it with family. And I guess they thought, okay, what's the best way we can kill off Han Solo?
Yeah.
Well, he could fall off. He could die of old age. He could be shot by someone random. Or we could make the new Sith villain, or I guess, are they even calling it the Sith anymore? I don't really know. It's just the dark side.
He called it like the Ren Knights or something like that. I don't know.
Well, the First Order is the name of like the Empire now or whatever. But
Snoke called it Snoke. Snoke called it something. I forget what he
can't
called
remember
it.
what it was. But or hey, we can make the new dark side of the Force Jedi guy. We can make him Han and Leia's son, and he can kill him. Which at first I was like, oh crap, that's going to be kind of cheesy. But as it went on, and at least in my opinion, when he died, when they were trying to blow up the massive planet weapon, whatever it was called, Death Star 3.0, and he actually killed him. I thought it was really powerful because for a few moments you actually thought Kylo Ren was going to turn back to the good side of the Force, and it didn't end up happening, and he actually kind of killed his dad in a weird way, and it was kind of weird watching him fall because even though maybe it wasn't a super powerful storyline on how he died, it was still just like, that's the death of Han Solo.
Yeah,
like the guy that we loved in 4, 5, and 6, and who was this iconic, bad boy, scoundrel, ladies man kind of thing, who we all just... That was, and usually we don't like those guys as guys, but Han Solo was awesome.
Oh, he was great.
It's like the way he shot and everything, and his blaster and all that stuff, and it was like, that character just died.
Yeah.
And we're never going to see him in another Star Wars movie.
Well, and like you said with that character, why he was so likable, like the battle between the Sith and the Jedi was such a serious and dark thing, and then Han Solo was kind of the one guy who was like, just like there to joke. He was comic relief, but he was just like, he kind of didn't take anything seriously.
Yeah.
But he still was a hero. So I think that's why he was so enjoyable. But yeah, that scene was so powerful. And with him being his son, at first I was kind of like, well, we'll see how this goes. But I do think that that's the only way. I don't know, it's not the only way, but it's the most effective way to make us understand the story, because I think really that's like a family drama playing out in the Star Wars universe. Like a prodigal son is a relatable story for everybody. Everyone understands that. And then when you have him kill his father after you see how much they both want him back, it makes you hate him even more. Because you're like, man, they loved you. He loved you enough to risk his life. Like he knew, and then it ends up killing him. Yeah. So I think that was, I agree that was, at first it was kind of like, this is kind of cheesy, but it was like, that's the best way to instantly make us emotionally attached to their storyline, and then immediately make us hate Kylo Ren that much more. So it was good. I liked it, and I thought his performance was refreshing because I didn't know what to expect. Like the last thing I've seen him in was I think I saw him in the last like Indiana Jones movie. And then
Harrison Ford?
Yeah, Harrison Ford. Yeah. And then he played a really small part in this movie, and it made me see with Blake Lively, that movie. So he was like, I don't know, I just didn't know what to expect from him, but he was great. I thought he was fantastic.
Definitely. I kind of wanted to talk about Leia, but honestly, I don't really know what to talk about with Leia. It's weird seeing these people old, and especially Leia and Han, because they were, this like kind of just young couple, and then all of a sudden the next movie we see them in their 50s or 60s or however old they were. Where are you on the evil side, the dark side of the Force, like with the villains? Obviously in 4, 5, and 6 we had Darth Vader and the Emperor. In 1, 2, and 3 we had like I guess it was Count Dooku, General Grievous. So they were cool, but they weren't really necessarily like evil.
Yeah.
Where are you on the scale of Kylo Ren and Supreme Leader Snoke?
I think it's really compelling so far. I mean, Snoke, we don't really know much about, so he's just kind of this mysterious figure. But it's the same thing. I think you mentioned it before or earlier today, that he was kind of that's the same way that we felt about the Emperor in episode 5 is when he was introduced. What did we see him in 4?
I can't remember, but we didn't see him a ton in 5, and then in 6 was when he...
Yeah, and in 5, it was like he was a kind of a mysterious figure we didn't know anything about. So I think this guy could be similar. But I like it because it's just, you can see the conflict between the general and Kylo Ren. And it's Kylo Ren is a very... Like, you can tell he's an emotionally, like, wrecked person. Yeah. He just is all over the place. And so I think it's compelling just because there's a little bit of unknown with him. Like, it seems like at any moment he could kill that general, or he could, because he's just he's a loose cannon. But he's so dark after that Han Solo death, which was like, back to the Han Solo thing for a second, like that was the most emotional death in the Star Wars series for me, because of all the weight of it in that moment, it was like, dang, that sucked.
They never really had like a main good character die.
Yeah.
Obviously, a ton of Jedi died, but Well, I guess Obi-Wan, but if you watched it 4, you hadn't really known Obi-Wan that long.
Yeah.
And then even then, he was played by Ewan McGregor in 1, 2, and 3, so it was a different person. Han's been like the same dude through 4 movies.
And we've never seen an emotionally charged death like that.
Yeah.
It's like he was, like you said, we thought that Kylo Ren was going to like maybe go back to being good.
Yeah, but at least like there was going to be something that explode and they would run away or whatever, and something like that would happen.
He was emotionally manipulating his father, and that's the thing that sucks is like he was never thinking about going back. He was just messing with him. Was like I need help killing you.
With Luke and Vader, they never really had that moment before 6, where like the emotional side of everything culminated. Before that, whenever they fought, something would happen and they would split up and they would keep this tension going. But then in 6, it was different because Vader actually like became good at the very end and killed the Emperor and got to see his son without his mask on for one last time. That didn't happen with Kylo Ren, so that was a twist from the per usual for Star Wars emotion.
Mm-hmm. And the Vader one was more satisfying because of what you said.
Yeah, exactly. He became good.
And all that to wrap up the evil thing, I think like that's what makes it almost more compelling because this feels like a darker evil than the other movies. Mm-hmm. Like it feels like it's more ruthless than Vader because Vader eventually did turn back to being good. So.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to talk about the new characters because I think they were probably the best part about the new movie for me. Yeah, it was cool to see all the the Millennium Falcon, all that stuff, but we had already kind of seen that in the trailer, and so we kind of knew it was coming and all that stuff. So it was really powerful. But what was more mysterious for me was how these new characters, Ren, Finn, and Poe were gonna, and obviously there were more, but those 3 main guys were gonna perform within the Star Wars universe and whether they were gonna be believable and all that stuff. And of course, they're all great actors, but are Rey and Finn like a thing? I can't tell.
Yeah.
They are?
Yeah.
Because she kissed him on the forehead and said friend. So did she friend zone him when he's like unconscious in a coma?
No, it's like friend in the way that a Jedi can't be in love with somebody. Like I think, I can't read too much into that moment. I just think she knows.
No, let's read into it.
Okay, well I think if you're looking from her character's point of view, she knows that she's about to like jump into the battle between the First Order and the Resistance. Mm-hmm. Like she knows that that's happening, and she goes to find Luke. She doesn't know what's going to happen after that. She could not even make it to Luke. She could make it to Luke, and Luke could be evil, or she could make it to Luke, and then they go fight evil, and she dies. Yeah. So I think she's like there was obviously chemistry
she's
there.
Trying to keep her distance.
Yeah, so she's like, I have to leave you. Like, hopefully, I'll see you again. Yeah. It's like you can't afford to emotionally attach yourself if you don't know if you're never going to see that person. Yeah. So I think it was like there is a thing, but they wanted to leave it ambiguous so that there would be that tension in the next one.
That makes sense. And then Poe and Finn, when I guess they first interacted, Poe was on the Star Destroyer. Duh. He was on the Star Destroyer being held captive, and then Finn rescued him because he didn't feel right. So the way he phrased it, that was his first action, and I guess we can assume he was 25.
You talking about Finn?
Yeah, was he probably 25 in the portrayal?
Yeah.
Okay, so if that's the case, then what we're led to believe here is, first off, I don't really know if they're clones. They're not clones because he said he was taken from his family.
And at one point, Kylo Ren says something to the general like, shouldn't you use a clone army? He says something like that.
So they're not clones anymore. So basically they abducted Finn or whatever his number was from his family at a very young age, and he was brought up. Why is he not fighting till he's 25? I mean, I guess are they that reliant on them doing whatever they need to do, for the first 20 years of the training? It was just kind of strange to me that like that was the point when he turned the first battle when the blood gets across his mask or whatever, or his mask, and he just didn't really know what was going on. He was kind of flustered, and then he has this internal conflict. That part was kind of weird to me, but so they kind of brushed over that. Like there wasn't really any like.
That's true.
I guess that's part of the Star Wars, like we were talking about earlier, is how they try to make like they just pass over things that could be an entire movie, and they just like kind of lead you to believe whatever you want to believe about what happened before. But he was a really good character. Like he was funny. He had the Han Solo. He was more of a Han Solo figure than Poe was, because I guess Poe, he was really cool at the beginning and at the end, but like we had an entire middle without him. And like amidst the conflict or whatever, Finn provided that that crazy excitement when he would kill something, in the Millennium Falcon and all that stuff. But he was just a really good character, and I think Finn, Rey, and Poe all really. They're going to make for a great episode 8 and 9, because I think all 3 of them have re-upped for all 3 of them already.
Sweet. Yeah, and it's like with the interesting thing too is Poe, at least Oscar Isaac is someone that we recognize. Like he's one of my favorite actors. So I love seeing him. But the interesting thing is the 2 characters that are on the screen the most are the 2 we know the least about. Yeah. From a character perspective, and like just as actors, like they're not familiar to us. But I think that they were both fantastic. And that, by the way, just like side note, the Death Star, the new one is called Star Killer. I had to look it up to make sure.
Star Killer.
Killer.
It's kind of a crappy name.
I know, whatever. I agree. It's like, we're going to have another word for destroyer, and maybe we'll use star in it. I don't know. Yeah, not a fan.
That's one of those things you spend like 5 minutes on. Like you're just kind of finishing up the movie. Hey, what should we call this thing? Star Killer?
Star Killer? Yeah.
Yeah, let's go develop Han Solo some more.
Yeah, so it's just fun to see the characters. Like, I just wanted to see more of... like Finn whenever he was on the screen, because he was high energy and just fun, and like he was the what the heck guy. Like he just didn't know what was going on, and
like I was left wanting more of those guys, which is weird because usually from a movie like that, I would expect to want more of the nostalgia, more of kind of what pulls at my heartstrings or whatever, more of what I remember as a kid, and of course I'd love more of that, but those characters were so good that I wanted more of them. Like I've never wanted to go see a movie in the theater like twice or 3 times, and I want to go back. Like, they were so engaging and so good, and it makes me really excited for episode 8, not to just see what happens with the storyline, but to see more of Rey and Finn and Poe.
Yeah, because I think I was locked in whenever I saw like Rey and Finn and whenever they were together. It was just like whenever they came on screen, I was super excited and like I was locked in. And then whenever they brought in Leia and were like going with that storyline, I was kind of ready to get back to the storyline they were developing, because I was like, we've seen this before. I know we just have to do this to say goodbye to Leia's character, but the one developing with Rey is so much more enjoyable than that.
Yeah, and I guess in episode 8, looking forward a little bit, I think they've confirmed it for, I think it's like May 27th, or it's somewhere in May of 2017, so we have about a year and a half. But so I guess storyline wise, we're gonna have Rey, Finn, and Poe, but I guess we have to have Luke and Leia now. I guess they could come up with some BS reason why Leia doesn't come back, perhaps.
Yeah.
Like, she's not essential to the storyline as much, but I mean, obviously you have to have Luke in the next movie, obviously. So we're going to have some, and periodically the middle movie of the trilogies, the first set and the second set, has been about, the dark side or whatever. So we'll find out more about the First Order and Kylo Ren and Supreme Leader Snoke and all that crap. But from episode 8, what are you looking forward to and what do you want to happen? Obviously, we talked a little bit about at the beginning of the pod about your desires for the storyline, and kind of, obviously we've already set ourselves up for kind of the same trajectory that the previous trilogies have gone over, as far as introduction, dark side, and then conclusion for the trilogy. So knowing that, what do you want from episode 8? As a Star Wars fan.
As a Star Wars, okay, so I want to see probably a couple of major things. I want to see like what made the First Order the First Order. Mm-hmm. Like, I'd like to, not that you have to do an origin story, but like I want to know more about Snoke. I want to know more about Kylo Ren.
Like a Morgan origin story from Walking Dead. A random episode thrown out like,
and then
why is he in the woods with a stick?
We hate his character the rest of the show. Gosh, we need to do a Walking Dead podcast just to talk about how much we want Morgan to not be on the show anymore. Yep. But anyways, so I want to know more about them, because I think that's the one thing where like it was I feel like there's so much story there. We just couldn't get to it in this movie. So like I want to see that. I want to see how they decide to send off Luke, because I feel like the only way they can get rid of Luke at this point is to do what they've done with Yoda and Obi-Wan. Like he has to go out as like a
R.I.P.
Yeah, he has to go out as a Jedi. Like I don't know if Kylo Ren is the one who kills him or if somebody else is, but they're gonna have to send him off the way they send off every Jedi. And so I want to see how they're gonna do that. Like I want to see how they develop the new characters more and more. Which ones are gonna get bigger roles. And now Finn's storyline all of a sudden becomes interesting, because
he's not a Jedi.
He's not. He's laying on a hospital table last time we see him. Mm-hmm. So like, what is he doing? Is he gonna wake up and all of a sudden be part of the Resistance, or is he gonna wake up and be like, I'm gonna go find Rey, or like, I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with Finn's character. But those are the main things. I want to see what happens with Finn, because he's got his storyline is now wide open. Yeah. Let's see what happens. Like I want to know more about this dark side, and obviously Luke and Rey's story. So
I guess for me, I'm more interested in the first like 15 minutes of the movie, because of the way they left off this movie. Episode 8 is probably gonna, probably, like I know what I'm talking about here, but you would think it would start off not directly with Luke and Leia, but some kind of external storyline, and then they would get brought up, and then you'd go to the island or the planet or wherever they are. Or it was an island on a planet. Yeah, because it looked like Hawaii or whatever. And so I guess that's how you're going to start off. But I guess I'm interested in those things that you talked about. I'm also interested to see how they kind of made the characters relevant, right? So like Rey, Finn, and Poe, the way they acted was relevant. And I know they won't because there's very smart. And J.J. Abrams, I looked it up. I think he's still going to have a piece in episode 8. He's not like the executive director or producer or anything. But I think he's like going to help develop the storyline with George Lucas still. As like kind of, I don't really know what their exact roles are. I just hope they don't try to be too relevant. You know, like obviously they would never like, try to like, have Finn take a selfie or something stupid like that. Yeah. But like they're really cool and like you feel like you could relate to those guys or the 3 new characters, Rey, Finn, and Poe, but they're not so relevant to where it feels like they're not in a galaxy far, far away, which is how every movie starts off because it's a fantasy movie, right? It's like, like Once Upon a Time is the way we all start off, all like, mythical fairy tale kind of movies or stories or whatever. And we think of Star Wars as as sci-fi, but it's really this like, it's a fairy tale. It's this, and of course we when we say fairy tale, we think, oh, Cinderella. So it's not, masculine or not cool or whatever. But in a galaxy far, far away is Once Upon a Time. And it's this mythical fairy tale. So it's kind of cool, they're relevant, but at the same time, it's still, it's a mythical fairy tale. So they can't be too relevant to where they feel like, okay, they're from Earth. They're like somewhere a long time ago in this distant galaxy that has no relevant nature to Earth except there's humans in the movie.
Yeah, and it's probably the same way people felt in the 70s when you saw Luke and Leia and Han, because they interacted like young people. Mm-hmm. And like this one, the energy is a lot younger. Like by the 6th one, everything was so serious. And then 1 through 3, the only like youthful part of it was Jar Jar Binks, everybody's least favorite character, and then Anakin. But like those were the only parts that felt young because everything else was about government and taxes and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This one felt like fresh and young because the energy was just like not serious and it wasn't about taxes and it wasn't about we haven't learned enough about the dark side to like be bogged down by that yet. So like in the next one, it's probably going to get darker the more we dive into it. But like it did feel so young and so fresh where like the last 5 movies we've seen from Star Wars, other than like number 4, where it felt like pretty bogged down by serious issues. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, that's pretty much all the thoughts I had on Star Wars. Do you have anything else? I really want to go see it again.
I know.
Like right now.
Yeah, I'm in.
All right, well, if you guys listened, we thank you. Well, obviously you did if you're hearing this. So thank you for listening, and hopefully we're going to do this more. We don't really like have a set schedule or anything, but it's kind of sometimes fun to talk things out as opposed to writing about it because you can still create an interactive experience through writing, but it's different than just, a couple of friends hanging out and talking about it. So we thank you guys for listening, and in the future, I guess, you can subscribe to podcasts. Yeah, so subscribe to our podcast and, look us up on Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. And we'll keep you guys updated as to when we, write new stuff and have new podcasts and stuff. So thanks for listening.
Thanks.